I have your attention, we will get started at 1 o'clock. Mr. Vella, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bone? Mr. Boyd? Mr. Cope?
Here.
Mr. Fisher?
Here.
Secretary Hargett?
Here.
Ms. Hayes? Here. Mr. Jarvis?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey? Tobin?
Here.
Treasurer Lillard?
Here.
Dr. Nixon?
Here.
Mayor Wharton? Comptroller Wilson? Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a call.
Well, let me welcome all of you to our spring meeting. Thank you for taking your time. We know several of our members have time constraints, but we will be judicious with our time. We'll make sure we cover all the business. Dr. Rhoda, would you welcome any of our special guests today?
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission and guests. Welcome to you all. Yes, I'd like to give welcome to the newest member of the Commission, Mr. Randy Boyd. Randy is known to all of us, having been with us last year in another capacity and doing well. And this year with us as a Commission member, but Randy is from Knoxville. Does many things in the private business community there as well as statewide. He chairs the Tennessee Achieves Board along with countless other things. So Randy, very glad that you're with us. Also visiting with us today is our new Maxine Smith Fellow. This is Dr. Kim Sequoia. Kim is a professor of management at MTSU and will be with us over the course of this next year as a fellow, working with us on specific projects as well as the overall lay of the land and the work of the Commission. So, Kim, we're very glad you're here with us. And as I mentioned earlier, special recognition of Robert Fisher, who was selected as a Truman Fellow, 2014 Truman Scholar. And Robert, if you don't mind, kind of explain to us what that involves.
Sure. So, the Truman Scholarship is a nationally competitive scholarship. There were about 660 applicants this year from across the country. Each received institutional recommendations from their university or college. 200 of us were then asked to interview, and 59 of us were selected across the country. The Truman Scholarship goes to individuals who have demonstrated a commitment to public service. Part of the application was presenting a policy proposal. Mine was about higher education. Go figure. And we went through a pretty grueling interview process. There were five candidates from Tennessee, and 2 of us were selected to represent the state of Tennessee as Truman Scholars. And so what that means is $30,000 for graduate school and some open doors in terms of graduate school options. So it's a tremendous honor to be selected. I think it brings a lot of distinction to the UT system, UTC, the Chattanooga community, but also to the state of Tennessee in general. So I'm honored.
Great.
Can I interject one thing, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
This young man is way too humble at moments. He's a very accomplished student. And this award of the Truman Fellowship is a distinct honor for him and recognizes him, but it reflects very positively on us, but him first and his family. Congratulations, Robert.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for those comments. Excellent comments. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Could I have a motion to approve the January 30th minutes, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman's report. I just want to commend the staff. I feel like I always do this, but you even surpassed yourself today. We had an excellent work session this morning. I thought it was very, very good. We had a lot of discussion. We had the 2014 legislative report review, the learning initiatives, and a simulation tool. So I thought the staff did an excellent job, and I think everyone else would agree with that. That's my report, so thank you.
Very good. Dr. Rhoda? Well, also, I'd like to thank Mr. Johnson. He was in town yesterday for other reasons, but came by and had lunch with the staff, and we really appreciated that. It was a good chance for informal discussion, and we appreciated your time and you, what you do as chair. So thank you for that.
I didn't have the money and I needed a free lunch.
Well, it worked out well. My report is going to be brief, and in fact, you're not going to be surprised at this. I'm going to have somebody else to give it for me. Before I do that, just kind of the same thing I said earlier at the work session. So this is a full agenda this afternoon. It was this morning. But virtually everything we discussed is under the heading of the Drive to 55, college completion. What are we doing for Tennessee in the way of increasing educational attainment of our students, but also prospective students? So that's the big picture. We, the recent legislation that was passed on the Tennessee Promise was important. It's significant. Many things yet to be done. I thought Kim this morning set that out very well, how it is as a financial aid program, but also as a public policy piece. What is it we're trying to accomplish, and how does all that work? That virtually everything else that on the agenda ties into that big umbrella. So now part of that also, and I'd like to ask Tristan Denley to go to the podium. He is, this is my report, Mr. Chairman, talking about the degree compass, which was started.
It could be my report, too.
That's true. Yeah, didn't think about that. But this, and Tristan obviously can explain this before, but he won't, well, he may tell you this, but he created this. And it started out humbly, I would say, and has grown and captured the imagination of many people across the state and in the nation as just an incredibly useful tool. And all is about helping students get engaged, be successful, and move on. So, Tristan?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Rhoda. Thank you, Commission members. So, it's my pleasure to give you a little bit of an update about what's been happening with Degree Compass over the last, I guess, 2 or 3 years since it first launched. For those of you who haven't heard of this before, and I guess also for those who have, so this is a piece of technology that really tries to empower student choice as they navigate their way through a degree program. It just simply is the case that there is a substantial amount of choice when faculty and advisors work with students as you work your way through general education requirements, upper division options, all of those things. There is information about how to do that, but the challenge here was really to try to use technology to empower those decisions, to really inform the conversations with advisors and students to do that. So basically the idea was to take the model of Netflix, Amazon, Pandora, the kinds of recommendation engines that I think are pretty much ubiquitous across life today, and to bring that same kind of spirit to academic advising. So that's what Degree Compass is about, and it was originally developed when I was there at Austin Peay. So it sort of looks something like this. Students go to the secure side of their web portal, and there they're presented with an interface that lists all of the classes which would satisfy as yet unmet degree requirements. So not the things that they have taken, but the things that, if they were to take them, would meet one of the requirements of their degree program. And you can see that they want to know when those courses are offered. They can click on that View Sections button and it will pop up information about that. And you can see that the courses come with star ratings. And the stars are intended to convey how strongly we would recommend that class for this particular student in their particular program. And you can see we can put it on you can put it on an iPhone app, you can put it on Android, so you can be wherever they are. The star ratings, as I say, the star rating conveys how well this fits a student's particular program. So there's various different elements to that. The first is really a curricular fit, trying to understand how well this particular course actually meets, as I say, an unmet degree requirement, but how well it also fits with their curriculum, and also depends on some ability to be able to predict how well they would actually do if they were to take that class. That way, to the greatest degree that we can find a way to steer students towards courses which actually move them through their degree programs and in which they will actually be successful, and so consequently progress through towards graduation. So what I really want to talk about this afternoon is not work that happened there at Austin P, but now work which was a partnership between THEC, Austin P, Complete College, was funded by the Gates Foundation, and in the end actually involved another half a dozen schools across the system. And really the thrust of that work was to see whether the system that worked at a single institution, could it actually scale to multiple institutions? There's a lot of moving parts to this, as you might imagine. I alluded to the fact that it has to actually be able to work with the different kinds of degree audit systems that multiple institutions might have, that there are different kinds of curricular structure, different kinds of degree programs, and also there's a grade prediction engine that's part of this. Is it really the case that you're just as able to predict grades at one institution as you are at everything from a rural community college to an urban Research 1 school? Is it true that the different kinds of students would make that more or less difficult? The only way to see was really to go and do that. And so that's really the results that I want to present today. The first is that I'm very happy to tell you that the grade prediction held up very well. So across all of those different institutions, from community college to Research 1 school, it was still the case that the grade predictions were within about half a letter grade, and with a better than 90% accuracy, we were able to predict whether or not a student would actually pass or fail the class. So in other words, there was a good deal of comfort in understanding that the courses that we were steering students towards, that they would have a goodly likelihood of actually being able to pass that class. Clearly, to make sure that those grade predictions really hold up across, that's sort of the lifeblood of a system like this. To give you some sort of a picture of what that might look like, so this is at a university, and you can see that, so overall, the overall statistics are basically what proportion of students on that campus in that semester got an A grade in their class. And you can see that it's about 35% or so, about 62% got an A or a B, and about 77% got an A, B, or a C in classes across the institution. If that class was recommended at a 4-star rate by the system, that class, students who took that class actually passed that class with an A at 64%, passed it with an A or a B at 93%, and got an A, B, or a C at 97%. So they did significantly better than the overall population when they actually followed the recommendations of the system. And I've included the statistics for courses sort of further on down the food chain, not only for entry-level classes, but also for the 3,000 level classes, for example. You can still see it, that sort of increase in student performance still holds true. Holds true at the community college level too, that there is, when students actually enroll in classes which are recommended to them, they do significantly better, which is one of the aims of the system. To go in a little bit further, this is some data that thinks about to earn a degree, you have to earn hours. You have to move on through. Clearly the grades that you get matter, but it's also the case that we want people to be earning grades. So this is a chart that shows of a 4-course load. How many hours at the end of the semester did that student earn if of the 4 courses they took, either none, 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of them were courses that were recommended by the technology? And you can see that there's a very strong correlation between the number of hours that they earn at the end of the semester. Everybody, all the students that are represented in this chart, they all took 12 hours. They all took 4 classes. But you can see students who took classes, none of which were recommended, hardly passed any of them, whereas students who basically took a full load of recommended classes basically passed all of them. And so this is exactly the kind of performance we were looking for. Zero in on that difference of when students actually take a complete schedule that's all recommended. We disaggregated that data by first of all by race, and then also by low-income students in just a second. There's a nationally recognized achievement gap for underrepresented minority students, and that's represented in that data. As you can see, the average gap for students in general across the data that we had was about 2 credit hours. between white students and underrepresented minorities. But you can see that when students took courses that were recommended by the system, everybody does better, but underrepresented minority students, their performance is significantly more increased, and the gap closes closes to by more than half. And we see exactly the same kind of picture for students who are supported by Pell Grants. Again, there's a national phenomenon of an achievement gap there. That gap is also significantly closed when those students follow this kind of advice. And this was really one of the motivations to create the system in the first place. What we recognized was the fact that first-generation students, underrepresented minorities, Pell students, they very often don't have the same kind of information system around them. They don't have parents who have been to college before. They don't have friends who have been to college before. They don't know to ask the kinds of questions that people in the know to ask. And so consequently, the decisions that they make they're simply not as well informed. They don't have the kind of information that others do. A system like this levels that playing field, and you can see that played out in the results. As I mentioned, this system has been in existence at Austin Peay the greatest, and so six-year graduation rates don't capture everything, but they're at least a pretty decent and well understood metric. And so you can see over the last few years there at Austin Peay, 2011 was where this system was actually put in place at Austin Peay, and you can see that there's been a significant overall increase in six-year graduation rate of that institution, and as I say, the gap has shrunk very appreciably for underrepresented minorities and low-income students. Be happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
So, Tristan, over the time frame at Austin Peay, what kind of subscription did you get to this? I mean, what percentage of the students actually use the Compass?
Yeah, this was and as you might imagine, a system like this, it takes a little time to kind of build into the culture of the institution. What we saw was about half of the students in the end saying that yes, they were consulting this as part of their process, and there were conversations about how one might actually bake this in, if you like, to as close as you can require students to consult this as part of their advising before they go to see their advisor. Everyone goes to see an advisor. That's a given. But this is a way to nuance that conversation.
Well, it's impressive. The other thing I would ask is, can you control the data set so that you know that it's the Compass that did the increase in graduation rates?
No.
That's a problem, right?
I mean, it's fair to say that this is part of
It's another tool.
There's all kinds of other things that are going on, but it's also the case that many of the kind of initiatives tend to try to I mean you know these games too, try to increase fall-to-fall retention for semester students, right. Redesigning freshman kinds of classes. There are not so many broad-scale initiatives that work at the other end, and this works across the board.
Well, it's innovative, no doubt. You must use Amazon a lot personally? That's how you get it one night?
I try to stay off Amazon as much as possible.
What does the system know about the student when they log on? What are your factoring?
It's a great question. So what the system does is actually it carries out a reverse degree audit. So it goes to see which classes the student has taken, and then which classes consequently they might yet take to satisfy an unmet degree requirement. So that then gives you this basic set of courses which could then be prioritized. All of the grade information, all the grade predictions, all of that is simply based on academic data. So no demographic data, nothing about race, gender, geography, nothing about faculty, so it's faculty agnostic and it isn't using faculty data, it's simply using pure academic data. Past performance data, exactly. And that was deliberate in the sense that we didn't want to create a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that perpetuates existing things.
Dr. Henley, how many schools in the state are using it right now?
So there are 3 schools that are actively using Degree Compass right now: Austin Peay, University of Memphis, and Nashville State. And then there are 3 others that are at various stages of implementation. Yeah.
And do you ever plan to put in a section where students can do an evaluation of a class the way you can when you purchase a product on Amazon?
Very interesting.
I don't know, I just thought that might.
Well, it's a fascinating thought.
Might be a lot of code for
You had to
some
answer that,
information you might not want.
I mean, it is the case, for instance, that students can go in and try stuff out. So they can do a sort of a what if and say, well, what if I were a something else major? What would it look like then? What kinds of classes would you recommend then? So they can explore other kinds of avenues to see whether another degree path might actually be a better fit. And there's a companion system which actually recommends majors as well as courses, and then links that information with the world of work, links with the ONET database to find positions, jobs, all of that kind of information as well.
So were you able to protect the intellectual property?
Yes, actually, Desire to Learn actually purchased this. Yeah.
Just an FYI, in the governor's budget, we got approved $300,000 for matching funds for all of our universities to adopt this program. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $1.90 per student. Is that right? So if we do the matching funds, somebody help me with the math, this should help us do almost everybody that wants to participate. So we'll have enough funds to encourage hopefully everybody to sign up for this. But so also, Tristan, it does look at ACT scores too. Is that right?
It does. So as part of the, and that's a great point. So for students who are first arriving on campus, clearly they don't have a large college level academic record perhaps. So it uses high school data and also ACT and ACT subscores as part of that picture.
Which kind of leads to a question. So we spent a lot of time talking this morning about getting adults back in.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that we could modify this that would be even more useful for adults? So I guess if their ACT score was 10 years ago, it may not be as relevant.
I agree, and so we did actually. It is also able to use things like compass scores. So you can need some kind of academic metric, but there's nothing special about ACT in that way. Actually, any kind of scaled metric would be something which could be fed into this system. Yeah, but you're exactly right. A lot of returning adults, either they didn't take the ACT or the ACT is too distant in the past for it really to be meaningful. Same with high school GPA may actually not be very meaningful if you're in your 30s. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, sir.
So I guess the student understands that these courses are ones in which they need but are also predicted to be successful in.
Yep.
When they choose their courses based on the ratings.
That's right, and this it's very important that this is not predetermining what it is that someone chooses. This is simply empowering that choice. So it doesn't choose for you. You're still in a position to be able to nuance that choice. And it's also the case that these are courses which, in that sense, are guaranteed to count towards your program. But somebody may be intellectually curious and like to take something outside, and that's fine too. But it's a choice architecture, not a predeterminer.
Tristan, does the advisor have access to this information, or do they get the information only if the student shares it with them?
No, there's also an advisor interface that I didn't show you, and the advisor has all of that information. And actually, the advisors also have the predicted grade information. We don't surface that to the students. Actually, we talked to students on Austin Peay's campus and asked them whether they would like that, and they said, no, we don't want that. We don't want to see and I think it's a very wise thing not to see, but advisors do get access to that information, and that again really helps to sort of nuance some kind of intrusive advising when students are predicted to find a course very challenging, then beforehand to make arrangements to have extra tutoring or extra kinds of support rather than 3 weeks into class when it's already kind of a done deal. That's a much better way to go.
Well, thank you, Tristan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, one other thing, ask Rustin to comment briefly on the legislative session is over, and we will have, Scott Sloan will be talking later about other legislative bills that were approved. If Russ could talk about the budget situation.
Sure, will do. From the feel-good portion of the program to the not-so-feel-good portion now, also known as the state budget. Yeah, the dark and gloomy, yeah, that's true. Well, an overview of the budget. As you probably know, the budget projections were not coming in as anticipated, and therefore the budget ended up being worse than initially proposed by the governor. To jump to the bottom line for higher education, and to take you back to where THEC started this process, recommending about $30 million for the formula units to reflect outcome growth. The governor's initial budget recommendation included about a third of that, or about $9 million for outcome growth. There was other funding for non-formula units and those things. Due to the trajectory of the state budget, those new recommendations had to be removed, and we ended up with essentially a flat budget. Essentially, the recurring 2015 dollars will be almost equivalent to where we are in the current year. The formula is still distributing the dollars we do have, though. That is still occurring. You'll recall this budget we're going into will be the second year without any hold harmless, the fourth year of using the new formula. You still have movement by campus within about a plus or minus 4% range on their appropriations. This is a key point that we think a lot about. What is that appropriate range of movement? That's where it is currently. To give you some background, too, the first year of the new model, we had about a 2% reduction in funding. Second year, essentially flat funding. The third year, the year we're in now, we had the $35 million new dollars. That was the high water mark, and now this fourth year, another flat budget cycle. So about one of the 4 years we've had new money. A little bit as well about the internal budget of THEC. THEC's internal budget's around $2.4 million of state funds. That is scheduled to go down in 2015 about 2.5%. We're scheduled for a reduction this next year. That is in addition to a reversion that we're scheduled to take, which is about 12% of our appropriation. So that is a significant portion of the budget that will be reverted back to state government. That is a historical process they've done for about 10 years now, having a reversion that many agencies are subject to, not just us. But the reduction itself, in addition to that, will be the fifth in the past 7 years. So these do have a cumulative effect. You heard a lot this morning about the many initiatives that are supported by grant funds, Lumina, Ford, CCA. You'll hear about Gear Up and Race to the Top later today. We've been very entrepreneurial and have been able to buttress many of the reductions with that funding, but that is a tough game because it's a very competitive process. The match between the granting agency's mission and goals and ours is not always there. So we've been fortunate to live off some grants here lately and to transfer some core policy functions to those, but that's temporary. So just to keep you informed about the internal budget, that's where we are now. And of course, we'll keep you informed as we go on through future commission meetings. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but otherwise, that's a brief update.
Thank you, Russ. That's our report, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Rhoda, you did a brilliant job with your report. Really did. Next, we will have the system reports. We will start with the Chancellor for the Tennessee Board of Regents. Then we will have the President of the University of Tennessee.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'll try to be very brief because I do know that people have other obligations that they need to get to. A couple of updates, I guess, on searches. The University of Memphis search for a president. I think that many of you may know we have been now for some time finalizing that search. Hope we're very, very close to that. Certainly within the next couple of months, David, we'll have a new president. No, it's a joke. No, I think just in a matter of a very short period of time. The four finalists that were selected by the committee included Guy Bailey, who was formerly the president of Texas Tech and the chancellor of University of Missouri, Kansas City. Sharon Gaber, who is a provost at the University of Arkansas and spent a great deal of time at Auburn University. George Hind, who is the provost at the College of Charleston. David Rudd, who is the provost at the University of Memphis. Very strong pool, excellent candidates, excellent process. And as I say, we are very close to I am very close to a recommendation to the board. We also have a search underway at Austin Peay. Interestingly, since I've been chancellor, we have literally had a search underway the entire time. I've been there a little over 3.5 years. I hope it's not because I'm chancellor, but nevertheless, that has been a reality. And I'm looking forward to finishing up the Austin Peay search and perhaps having some respite from that activity. But we also have a very strong pool that will be on campus here over the next week to 10 days at Austin Peay. Bradley Cook, who is the provost and executive vice president at Southern Utah University. Jerry Gilbert, who is the provost, executive vice president for Mississippi State. Randall Hanna, who is the chancellor of the Florida College System, which is a state government position in Florida, part of the division of Florida colleges. And Lisa White, who is the provost and senior vice president for academic affairs at the University of Texas at Tyler. Again, very strong candidates. You may recall, I guess 2 years ago or so, the law was changed to allow some measure of confidentiality in searches until the time that finalists were named. Our results of that so far suggest that it is a much preferable system in terms of attracting high-quality candidates, and is working quite well. Just real quickly, several things going on across our system that superlatives that our schools have received from various publications and so forth, and I'm not going to take the time to go through those. I will say, I guess about 3 weeks ago or so, we did have a convening of teams from our campuses, and in addition to the institutions of the University of Tennessee system, that we called a completion summit, which was really a follow-up to completion academies that had taken place over the last 2 or 3 years, and it was an extraordinary opportunity, I think, for teams from all of our campuses to come together and share success stories, also share challenges, and get a tremendous amount of benefit from collaboration and networking across both systems, across all of our institutions. And just a word about that Russ described to you what we would suggest the dismal results of the budget process. While it is understood that there are limited resources that have to get allocated for the purposes that rise to the top in terms of priority, it is very difficult in the environment we're in to expect our institutions to continue to innovate, continue to find strategic investments to make that really do impact student success in the way that I think we hope to impact student success as we drive to 55. Somehow, some way, and I think THEC, I think the board, I think the UT Board of Trustees, I think we all have a responsibility and a role to play here in really elevating post-secondary education beyond where we are now, where there's a common understanding of how important it is, to get to that next level where it is in fact a priority, and a priority that will get funded along with other priorities that are established for state government. So I would just invite you all to think about what we can do collectively as well as individually to try to elevate that conversation in Tennessee, because it is important. While state funds, the charts show this, state appropriations are a diminishing share of the total. The consequences of that diminishing share is that student costs go up, which runs counter to our objective to increase the customer base for the service that we provide. But also, in the case of our TCATs, 65% of the cost of educating a student at one of our colleges of applied technology is a state responsibility. About 35% is the student share. That's roughly 40% state at community colleges and around 30% at the universities on average, but still a significant share of the cost of providing the kind of quality service that we have to provide if the state's going to be competitive going forward. So I simply say that to continue to whine about the budget, which I've been doing pretty consistently now for the last several months, and you'll probably get a chance to hear this again in June if I'm with you. But that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
But you do it so well.
Well, thank you.
Mr. President.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would echo the Chancellor's comments about elevating the conversation regarding the priorities of the state when it comes to funding education in general. From the very beginning, John and I, we came on board about the same time frame. We've locked arms about the completion agenda. I think it's very, very important. We think that all along that we were worried that if once the hold harmless money started to drift away, and we knew it would, in the event of not fulfilling the obligation to the performance funding would put us into a conundrum where the political wills around higher education might drift the wrong way about the completion agenda. I think we sensed that in getting called back to the Finance Committee meeting, John, that we went to late in the session. A lot of the issues were West Tennessee, East Tennessee. I pointed out that Martin was in West Tennessee. And it does not give me any pleasure, really, to think that this year, collectively, we will see an increase of $5.7 million at the cost of the TBR institutions, because in reality, everybody's done better. And if we had been able to fund that, and I understand the state's circumstances, we would have been better off. It would have blunted those impacts for those institutions. So I've said from the very beginning, it's not about UT and TBR, it's about all of us together advancing higher ed, and that was true at the summit meeting, and we talked about it there as well. And we look forward to working with this commission and the General Assembly and other policymakers to see if we can't fix it next year. Enough said about budget. One other thing. All right. So, I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. Well, John said you might hear more about it from him. So if you look at the capital outlay expenditures this past year, we're very appreciative that they were allocated and provided, despite the fact we got none. But my point about this is not that we got none this year, but recall that 3 years ago, wasn't it, John? 3 or 4 now. We actually worked with the General Assembly and the Governor's Office looking at a new approach toward capital outlay that said if you had matches in hand, you needed matches on, when we come to building commissions, Mr. Secretary, we talk about the fact that you need a match. They're different depending on whether you're formula or non-formula. I'm just warning you that right now within our system, we currently have at every institution outside of UT Martin, and they're close, I think, there are matches in hand on buildings. So, we've got needs for buildings, we've got matches in hand that have come in from donors, and now we've got a predicament in front of us that we'll face next year. Enough said about that. Totally different topic. I'm taking a different tack now. All right? And I want to talk to you about our efforts around distance education, and particularly our wrapping up a first year of a pilot program that Randy helped us with, and the governor and THEC did, around looking at a major initiative to compare online training versus classroom training at all of our institutions. And it wasn't long ago that you all heard about MOOCs, which are massive open online courses. Stanford came up with it, and tens of thousands of students we engaged and enrolled at no cost. John and I talked in TBR, and we wanted to make sure that we could figure out a way to participate in this, and Randy helped us with it. And what I want to bring to you today is sort of a show and tell, Joe's show and tell about this with the expertise of a couple of people from Knoxville, Renee Smith and Jennifer Gramling, who will help share some of the video approaches we've taken to our MOOC approach at a more modest level at these institutions, comparing it to traditional classroom activities. So we have developed pilot technology to take a look at these new teaching approaches. One of our things at all the campuses, but one of our things was, could you compare it to the traditional model and see whether there was a comparative pedagogical effect? Was the teaching of the same quality or better? Some of the things we've seen include that participants like the new design courses in most cases better than the old ones, and part of it's the way these young people learn. I mean, number one, if you study much about the Coursera platform, the number one time to get online is like 1 o'clock in the morning, because that's what undergraduate students do, and they're shaking their heads. I'm sleeping. We also realized that students today want stuff in short snippets, not 50-minute lectures. I was the benefit of sort of videotape learning at the University of Illinois as an undergraduate. I thought about that coming over today, and we would have 50 minutes of chemistry lecture by video tube. A guy standing there like a talking head. It was horrible. Horrible. I like chemistry, but it made it horrible. So most of the time we've hit it on the head, and students prefer the online flipped classroom in which you no longer have the 50-minute lecture, but instead you do your stuff online that is the learning aspect of a lecture, and then you come to a quiz section or a laboratory to discuss, debate, and have your questions answered and refine your learning. So we've got the other thing that's been a benefit is we have great teams and lots of enthusiasm. We have more faculty who want to get engaged in this process of online learning using a MOOC-like platform like Coursera. And in most cases, we've seen improved outcomes. We've learned some things too. Composition courses don't lend themselves to this kind of an approach. We did that at Chattanooga, as well as math or music. And so that you can see what this looks like, I think Renee's somewhere, right, Renee? Are you? Oh, shit. Okay.
Help up there.
All right. I've got the first one you'll see is a pilot that we did looking at a video approach to completely transforming online courses, which were in PowerPoint slides, into a dynamic personal delivery style that was for a subject matter around music, general education music course at UT Martin. Let's see if it works.
So you can see the contour underneath as it goes through. So you have Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. That would be the melody that we're talking about. The next part of the melody we're going to talk about is range. And range is how low and how high a piece will go. So if we look at the three different kinds here, we have narrow, medium, and wide. The first one is narrow. We have America. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. The formation of major minor scales. We talk about 12 semitones that make up the chromatic scale. The white keys on the keyboard plus the black keys on the keyboard. And that two of those half steps equal a whole step. So listen to the whole chromatic scale. A lot of triple meter comes across with that dance, that waltz-like feeling to it. Take a listen. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Listen to the familiar fanfare with the frequent trills. This theme was used for a television show. And if you're trying to guess, I've already told you what it was. Masterpiece Theater on PBS. You're going to hear right from the start. Dun 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 dun. Thanks so much. Take care.
So the people involved at Martin were Derek Head, Jessica Garcia, and Rodney Freed, who put their creative minds to work on this. A couple of things that we've learned also is it takes a lot more time to put this stuff together than the traditional approach, but it's a one-time activity. I think Renee told me on the way over that she thought it took about twice as long. And the second example that I'd like to show you, and it won't take long, we actually took a flipped classroom approach. So what would traditionally be done in a classroom is done via video, and then there were quiz sections twice a week. And don't be frightened, it's mathematics. It's a general education math course. I think it was Math 111, if I recall correctly. This will give you a feel for a STEM kind of discipline taught through this medium.
This lesson is about the graphs and equations of lines. But first we need to learn about slope. Slope is a measure of the steepness or slant of a line. Take a look at the slope house. A line slanted like the left side of the roof has a positive slope. The right side of the roof has a negative slope. The floor of the slope house, a horizontal line, has a slope of 0. In the exponential expression b to the n, the variable b is referred to as the base, and the n is the exponent, or power. The expression b to the n means n factors of b. So the answer is 4 over x to the first. Remember, when you cross the line, you change the sign of the exponent. Every licensed driver in Tennessee is at least 16 years old. Age 15 is not in the set of ages of licensed drivers. If the point 1, 2 is reflected across the x-axis, it will end up at 1, negative 2. Notice the alignment of the reference points is the same as it was originally, except it's flipped over, which makes sense since we have a reflection. These logs that are positive, their parts, the 3 and the x, came from the numerator of the condensed form, and these negative logs, their parts, came from the denominator of the condensed form. First we'll plot 1/2, negative 1, then 1, 0, and then 2, 1. And remember that for an exponential function, a vertical shift moves the asymptote. So 30 plus 1 is 31.
But wait, there's more.
An alternate way to find g of f of 3. Congratulations! You have finished the last video lecture for this course.
And as far as what's coming up, and both Renee and Jennifer are here to answer any technical questions you might have, but as far as where we're going to go from here, we're looking at teaching literacy via this kind of approach at UTC, and then a literature course at UT Martin. So we're very appreciative of the funding that was provided. It appears to be in the 14-15 budget to continue in this vein. We don't know exactly where it'll go from the standpoint of us participating in actual MOOCs that are out there. But we do think it's powerful. I think the students are voting with their enrollments. It seems they appreciate this approach as opposed to the old tradition of a 50-minute lecture from somebody who's gray in the beard like Joe. It's been a lot of fun, and probably the surprise has been the fact that we've had more people interested in doing it than we expected. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank both of you. Chancellor President, excellent reports. Mr. Chancellor, can you have some music next time for you?
We'll bring a show in too.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. Next, we have several action items. We will start with approval of new academic degree programs.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. There are 3 new academic program approval requests for your consideration this afternoon, and I will be presenting each of these individually. The first one is the Theater and Dance Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Fine Arts program at Austin Peay State University. These programs were developed in part based on recommendations from the academic audit process as part of the Quality Assurance Performance Funding Program. The audit team recommended that the communication program that incorporated the theater concentration be restructured to better serve the needs of students and improve collaboration among faculty. These programs will create a transparent pathway for students to pursue these studies. The theater and dance programs are definitely aligned with Austin Peay's mission as the designated public liberal arts university in Tennessee, and it also has the state's only Center of Excellence for Creative Arts. Students will have the option to pursue either a liberal arts degree or the professional BFA degree. Although there are other universities that offer a theater program in the state, Austin Peay will be the only public institution that will seek accreditation from the National Association of Schools of Dance. Tennessee students that are currently interested in dance will now be able to pursue this program in Tennessee rather than participate in the academic common market. Currently, there are about 15 Tennessee residents that are studying dance at the University of Alabama as well as Western Kentucky University. The theater dance program will generate sufficient tuition and fees to cover all of their program operating costs. The program costs will be limited to salaries for 3 new full-time faculty over the next 5 years, as well as library, equipment, and accreditation needs. Over the 5-year period, there will be 50 graduates that will be expected to complete the program. And as I mentioned, the Department of Theater and Dance will be seeking accreditation from both the theater as well as the dance accrediting agencies. In summary, the theater dance programs will establish transparent pathways for these fields at our designated liberal arts university, where there is both a center as well as a chair of excellence in creative arts. The faculty in the department are very knowledgeable and well-talented. Program graduates will have careers and opportunities awaiting them, especially with Nashville ranking as the 4th largest metro area with the highest concentrations of jobs in the performing arts. TBR has approved both the new administrative department as well as the new academic programs, and I now recommend approval of the theater dance BA as well as the BFA program at Austin Peay State University. Are there questions?
Question from the commission?
Move to approve.
Second? Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Can y'all?
The next program, again, is at Austin Peay State University. This is in the area of engineering technology, and it's a graduate program. And this will blend a unique blend of technical engineering instruction for individuals to advance to leadership positions in the industry. The program is already directly linked to a successful accredited bachelor's program in engineering technology. This program is going to be based at the Fort Campbell Center, where the Department of Engineering Technology already serves a mix of both traditional as well as non-traditional students. While there are other engineering technology programs do exist in the state, the proposed curriculum is distinct from the other programs. Additionally, the program does respond to our demonstrated workforce need as indicated in our supply-demand study, as well as industrial employers in the Austin Peay service region. The curriculum is unique. It's a 33-hour program. We'll be using technology based on product creation as well as evaluation. And all of the courses are going to be offered in an 8-week accelerated, primarily in the evenings, and this will facilitate students being able to graduate in a timely manner. The university has also made significant investment in a lab. We were able to tour the lab during the site visit, and the external reviewer from the University of Alabama was very impressed with those facilities as well as the faculty. Again, this program will also generate sufficient tuition and fees to cover all of the program costs, and the cost for this program will be limited to salaries for 1 new faculty member that will be hired in year 2, as well as travel and marketing costs. Over the 5-year period, there are 28 graduates that will be expected to complete the program. The students will complete a capstone project, and they'll be working closely with their faculty advisor. And although there is no specialized accrediting agency for graduate engineering technology programs, this program will be evaluated using multiple indicators, and those results are going to be shared with their advisory board for feedback. In summary, the engineering technology program responds to a STEM workforce need. It builds upon an accredited bachelor's program with excellent faculty expertise, as well as first-class facilities and equipment. And the Board of Regents also approved this program at their March meeting, and we're here today to recommend approval of the engineering technology master's program at Austin Peay State University.
Question from the commission? Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And the final program for today is the Master of Science in Digital Marketing at East Tennessee State University. And this program is going to blend marketing, communication, as well as technology. Students are going to be prepared to identify marketing problems, conduct research, and generate solutions in the digital environment. This will be a 36-hour program. It will require capstone, and of course, all of the courses are going to be offered online. Courses, what is unique about this program is that they're going to be taught by industry practitioners as well as full-time faculty on campus. ETSU will become one of only 2 digital marketing programs nationwide. The other program is located in Connecticut at St. University. The establishment of this program will have a positive impact for the state, with a projected increase in marketing management positions projected to increase roughly around 14% by the year 2020. The digital marketing program will cost roughly about $50,000 annually, and the cost will cover a graduate assistant, program coordinator, and the 4 industry practitioners. The program will involve faculty from 2 colleges, the College of Business as well as the College of Arts and Sciences, but the administration of the program will be by the Department of Management and Marketing, and they project 36 graduates by the end of the monitoring period. And part of their assessment, they will be included in the upcoming AACSB reaffirmation. ETSU plans to offer this interdisciplinary program in digital marketing. The program, again, will be the second of its kind in the nation. The program was reviewed by an external reviewer from Kennesaw State University and noted many program strengths and stated that this program would really create new national recruiting opportunities at ETSU, and it was approved by the Board of Regents in March and is here now for your consideration.
Question from the commission? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Motion is approved. Thanks.
Yes. Could you say a few words about, as we're going into the moratorium for next year, how things are going and what preparation?
Effective July 1, THEC, along with the governing boards, will take a 1-year pause to really provide institutions an opportunity to review their current catalog, and also for us here at THEC to review all of the academic policies as relates to the program approval process. And right now we're in the midst of all of this, and so we will probably be having many more programs presented here at the Commission, but then after we go through all of those, then we'll be able to come forward with you, to you with a new plan for the academic approval process.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Next, we will have post-secondary education authorization. Thank you, Dr. Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. Good afternoon. I have 3 action items for your consideration today. The first one is in Section 1B1, and it is for the reauthorization of our institutions. The Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions recommended the reauthorization as follows: 308 for regular authorization, 56 for temporary authorization, and 11 for conditional authorization. And that makes a total of 179 authorized institutions with 375 locations.
Question from the commission.
Move to approve. Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved.
The next section is 1B2. In that section, we have 6 institutions and 77 new programs that are recommended for temporary authorization and approval, respectively. And just for information purposes, this agenda, there were 11 institutions and 17 new programs that were deferred for not meeting minimum standards and didn't make it to the agenda.
Questions from the commission? Motion to approve? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
And my last agenda item for action today is for the reappointment of 3 of our committee members to the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions. That is in Section 1B4. And the staff is recommending that Mr. Miles Burdine, Mr. Larry Griffin, and Ms. Lethea Sweatman be reappointed for a 3-year term beginning July 1st, 2014.
Move approval. Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? It's approved. Dr. Rhoda.
Well, on that, I want to pick up on something Stephanie said about the number of new institutions or number of new programs that were deferred, and that's just a reminder that it's a policy decision on our part, but we don't bring a petition or an application forward for a new institution or a new program unless it meets the standards. So as a result, sometimes questions like, well, aren't any of these institutions ever rejected or voted down? The answer is no, because we don't put you or the advisory committee in a position to do that. So Stephanie and her staff are great working with the new institutions, the new programs, to get them in a position where they meet the standards. They usually, correct me if I'm wrong, those new institutions that don't meet the standards, they usually come to that conclusion by themselves.
Well, no, we send them a letter. Letting them
A certain point they realize, right?
Yeah, and at a certain point, they actually say, well, thank you, because they're a better institution now, after we sit down and meet with them and consult with them. Yes, sir.
Right. So the other part, too, is just the advisory committee, and you just approved the reappointment of 3 of the members. They meet quarterly, about 2 months, 3 weeks. I'm sorry.
About
2 or
3
3
weeks or a month.
before
Yes, sir.
every commission meeting to go through all this. So they do a lot of the screening on your behalf before it comes to you.
Dr. Rhoda, what does our approval signify really?
Well, your final authority. This is your regulatory, so they can operate in Tennessee.
So we're saying they meet
Statutory, well, go ahead.
You're saying they meet the minimum standards necessary to be authorized. So there's personnel standards, there's fire inspection standards, there's curriculum, just about everything you can think about of the operational standards of an institution. There's a minimum standard for it listed in our rules and or statute.
All the questions, all the comments, Dr. Rhoda?
That's it.
Okay. Now Julie Woodruff will present the proposed rule revisions.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Today, before the Commission for Adoption, are final rule revisions as well as responses to some comments that we received on those rule revisions contained in the Notice of Rulemaking hearing filed February 3rd, 2014. In your materials are 4 attachments. First is a red line of the final rule revisions. Second, a summary of the comments and the suggested responses thereto. Third, a transcript from our March 27th rulemaking hearing. And fourth, a copy of all timely filed written comments. Just for some history, I'll go through some of the process points we've gone through. On January 16th, 2014, the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions voted unanimously to recommend proposed rule revisions to the Commission for the purpose of filing a notice of rulemaking hearing with the Tennessee Secretary of State. Thereafter, on January 30th, the Commission voted in accordance with the Committee's recommendation and authorized a member of the Division of Post-Secondary School Authorization staff to conduct the hearing as soon as possible. THEC filed the Notice of Rulemaking hearing on February 3rd, which set the comment due date and the hearing due date for the hearing date for March 27th, 2014. The rulemaking hearing was held as noticed. Currently, the Commission authorizes approximately 188 institutions. 13 of those institutions were represented at the hearing, with 6 of them making oral comments. Additionally, a representative of the Tennessee Association of Independent Colleges and Schools commented, and then we also received written comments from 3 institutions that were not represented at the hearing. All of those comments are contained in your materials. Following the hearing, DPSA sent to the committee the final rule revisions and related materials, including the responses to the comments before you today. At its April 10, 2014 meeting, the committee voted unanimously to provide a favorable recommendation to the Commission. The recommended revisions include changes to multiple rule sections within Chapter 1540-01-02, as well as adding a new rule, .26, involving the return of regulatory fees. The revisions serve to bring our rules more in line with our enabling legislation, provide better organization and clarity, and to memorialize current practices. Upon approval, the revisions will be submitted to the Office of Attorney General and Reporter for its review. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I will continue to the specific action items.
Questions before she continues?
Okay. The Commission, having received all necessary documentation in advance of today's meeting and hearing the summary presented today, I offer the following motions for your consideration and ask for a roll call vote on the adoption of the rule revisions. Motion 1. The recommended motion is that based on a review of the responses to comments and the recommendation of the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions, the Commission adopt responses to the comments labeled as Attachment 2 to the Commission materials for Agenda Item 1B5.
Ms. Carter, would you call the roll?
Mr. Baum?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Cope?
Aye.
Secretary Hargett? Ms. Hayes?
Aye.
Mr. Jarvis?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Coven?
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard? Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
And Chairman, let me just, for clarification purposes, because this is a rulemaking, I cannot make the motion. So my motion was a recommendation. It might be that someone needs to
Need a
adopt
motion
that.
from the commission body.
Yes, sir.
I motion.
Do you have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll do the next, I'll make a recommendation for the second item, do the same thing, but we'll need a roll call.
Oh, yeah,
vote.
we got it now.
Okay, we're good, all right.
We slow, but we
Okay, so motion 2. The recommended motion is that based on a review of the information obtained to date through the rulemaking process and the recommendation of the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions, the Commission adopt the final rule revisions as reflected in the red line labeled as Attachment 1 to the Commission materials for Agenda Item 1B5.
Motion for approval, call the roll. Need a motion. So, need a motion. So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh.
Call the roll.
Mr. Baum?
Aye.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Cope?
Aye.
Ms. Hayes?
Aye.
Mr. Jarvis?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Coven?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Took us a while to get that. That's good. We shouldn't have to work this hard. Yeah. Thank you. Our next action item is the sales program selection.
Yeah, Mike Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Roeder, members of the Commission. We're going to talk briefly about kind of where we've been on sales this last year, and then we'll ask for your approval on where we're going to go with sales next year. Just to briefly recap, sales is the seamless alignment of integration and learning support program, and what it is essentially doing is something that sounds incredibly simple, but has turned out to be pretty complex, and that is to go to high school seniors who we know are going to require remediation when they enter our campuses in higher ed and deliver math remediation right there in the senior year. Chattanooga State and a few other community colleges piloted this a few years ago. What they found was that in that environment, the K-12 environment, that math remediation success rates went up greatly. And that has a lot to do with just the fact that K-12 is just a little bit more wraparound support than we have in higher education. We at the state level, working with Randy in the governor's office, wanted to see what this would look like if we took it out of a pilot mode, we implemented it more widely in our high school classrooms. This is what the classroom looks like. And I think it's interesting to see the picture because it certainly doesn't look like any math classroom most of us were in. But the fact is, this is the classroom environment, and Dr. DiPietro got near this earlier, that is working for a lot of our students. And that is a self-paced math course. You'll see they're all working at their screens. We have an instructor up front, though, that's doing tailored instruction for their problem areas. One of the things we know about these students is they've been probably told somewhere along the way, you're not a math person. Or they've told themselves, I'm just not a math person. And so they develop math anxiety. And in a lecture format, math anxiety manifests itself as never asking questions when you need help. So guess what? You end up further behind and it becomes a cycle. In this environment, students feel much more free to ask questions and receive the instruction they need. So we went to 6,000 students last fall, 2,000 students this spring in a K-12 classroom, partnering with a community college, and we delivered the remedial instruction that's exactly the way it would have been delivered on a college campus. And our results thus far are, of that 8,200 student population, 3,800 of them have completed all remediation. They will never need math remediation. It is fully complete. They are done. They will enter a credit-bearing math course. That equates, if you look at just the fall cohort, a success rate that's pretty close to 60% in terms of full completion. We learned a valuable lesson, and that is do not start sales students in the spring. And we will not do that again. A couple different factors, not the least of which was the weather. Standardized testing resulted in us not having nearly as high of a success rate in the spring. So we're going to implement that next year. There's a number I didn't put on the slide because it isn't final, but I do want to share it. And that is our real metric for success in sales really has to do with students that complete 3 competencies. If you complete 3 competencies, you've saved at least a semester. We think that that number will be more in the range of 70 to 80%. We won't know for sure for another week, and that's show-stopping. And those students, when they do show up to a campus, even if they haven't fully completed remediation, they have 2 competencies to complete versus 5. And in a co-requisite model, they are much further ahead than they would have been. I'm looking for Tristan's affirmation there. We invested
Generally larger than 0.
Yeah. That is a mathematician answer. We invested $1.1 million in this as a state, and our students have saved $5.5 million. And that feels like a really good year's work. And we're excited about what's coming next year, because what's coming next year is we're going to ramp. We're going to literally, we crawled in our pilot phase. We walked this year. Next year we're running. We're going to double our enrollment. We're going to go from 6,000, actually 8,000, to 12,800. And about the next 90 days, we're going to expand our cohort to that group of students. A lot of people want to be in sales. We had to set up a competitive process for those that wanted to be in sales. Looked a little bit like this. We had funding for about 12,000 students. If you were already in sales, we let you continue, no questions asked. And we also provided some competitive advantage to those schools to expand. That took up 10,000 of the slots, pretty much walking in the door. We opened an RFP for the remaining 2,000 slots. We received 4,000 slot requests. So the committee, several of whom are in the room, had hard work ahead of them. We rated them on several different areas, whether or not they had good partnerships with their community colleges, what their technology infrastructure looked like. They were scored very methodically, and then we just began awarding seats to our highest scores and working our way down. And this is what sales, our additional seats, will look like. Just something to point out here, the cut ended up being an 85. If according to the rubric you scored an 85 or above, you were in. If you got an 84.9, you were not in. And that's really how exact you have to be with a competitive process like this. We didn't mean for it to happen, but we ended up plugging a lot of the geographical holes that sales had this year with our 8,000 student cohort. We actually ended up in a couple places in West Tennessee and East Tennessee that we needed to be to have a little more equal distribution. And we ended up coming in just over 12,000 seats, which we're comfortable with. We think we have room in the budget. But this represents a recommendation of the committee, and we actually need to bring it to you for approval, and staff does recommend approval. You'll see before you a blue sheet of paper that represents, if you want to just be able to read this a little more clearly, the LEAs and the seats that are assigned to each LEA. If you approve this today, we will immediately begin training the teachers in these LEAs for August rollout. And so I'll take any questions you might have at this time.
Go ahead, Pat.
Mike, I'm assuming the number of seats, you're doing this at one school in each of these counties, or each of these cities?
Not necessarily.
Oh.
In some school districts, for instance, Tipton County, it's very easy to have 2 or 3 schools and be at 120 aggregate. We let the LEA decide, though, and I'm glad you brought this point out. We let them decide which schools in their district that they think are ready to implement now. Some of these will represent the 100% saturation. Every high school in the district is doing sales. Others, it's one or two schools.
So talk to me about Shelby, for example.
Absolutely. Shelby County is going to end up with about 10 schools. And within those schools, not every student will be in sales. And we did that in a couple places this year. It's not ideal because you have a couple students taking bridge math, which is a senior year math that has no effect on their higher education future, versus some students taking a class that's going to give them a leg up. But that is what the schools requested. And a lot of that has to do with technology availability, as you saw from the picture. We're excited about Shelby County, though, and I don't think they'd mind me saying they struggled a little bit this fall and lagged the rest of the state. In the spring, they became one of the leaders. And so we're really excited about what Shelby County is going to do.
One more thing I wanted to say. I was very glad to see that the English composition component of this is being developed right now. Do you have any idea on when that might be?
No, we have a lot of ideas on that, actually. And Missy Stugart in our academic affairs shop, we stole her from an English classroom from a high school. She's finishing her PhD in literacy right now. She's a kind of an English Common Core expert, is leading that work. We are on track for a spring pilot in 2015. English is a little harder to address in a remedial area than math. For one, there's a little more consensus among the TBR community colleges about what math remediation looks like versus English. It's not quite as wrapped up.
Well, referring back to what Joe said earlier, composition classes may not necessarily lend themselves to online instruction.
Right.
So I can see the difficulty there. Although, if this is the way young people learn and learn best, you want to greet them and meet them where they live. And
we think it can work,
I'm sure
by
it's
the way.
hard to do, but I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, we think it can. Two of the community colleges that are going to be helping us with the pilot were really chosen because their learning support English model right now is very successful. And so we'll be working on that really throughout summer, fall, pilot in the spring. Right, Missy? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Like improvement in Shelby, what do you contribute it to?
When schools are doing poorly in sales and suddenly start going, it almost always because school administration suddenly get it. Where sales isn't working, it's because school administration think this is another math class that happens to have computers. And when they believe that, it's not because of anything ideological. They just don't understand the model. Kim McCormick from Chattanooga State made Memphis her project this year. And by the end of the year, our 3 schools in Memphis, which will now have 13 or 14 schools, were the leaders in the state. They just needed to understand it and understand that the students were benefiting in a way that you really don't see in many K-12 classrooms.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Are there additional plans for expansion of the program after another year or two of evaluation?
So that's a great question. Sales shouldn't be a long-term endeavor.
Okay.
We hope what sales is a Band-Aid to get us through a couple different things. First, students who have gone through 4 years of Common Core math, and this is why higher education has been very supportive of Common Core, we believe begin to succeed in much higher rates in higher ed. So we hope that this gets us through that transitional period. Second, and I think K-12, and Dr. Nixon, we've said this before, ultimately this is higher education going to K-12 and delivering instruction. We hope that at some point K-12 just begins to deliver this instruction. And that may require the bridge math course to be modified in its curriculum, which some districts, by the way, and the commissioner have already discussed. But we hope there's no long-term future. We really hope we work ourselves out of a job here.
Additional questions? Thank you. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second? Second. Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Dr. Rhoda, we will go to you for
We're on the information items. And we can do this.
all of action items.
Right. We can do this pretty quickly because we did a number of these this morning. But one that I spent a little bit of time on is the first item, and that's the Drive to 55 status report. We've listed in the materials, other than the Tennessee Promise, which we discussed at some length this morning, what those other dimensions are of Drive to 55. We've also hit on some of those. But first, again, got to really go back to this is a product of Randy Boyd and his work with us in the governor's office, UT and the Board of Regents and TACUA. all last year, and a lot of things obviously did not make it to this final list, but that's another discussion. But I want to recognize Randy for being the leading force on this. Ann Buckle, who's with us, assisted throughout this effort and is still with us. And Mike, all of us chipped in on this on the THEC staff side, but Mike was the one who really was our point person on a lot of fronts. So thank you to all of you. So going through this memo, just...
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
And I'd just like to take a point of difference and disagree with Dr. Rhoda in that every single great idea that we had came from the THEC staff and TBR and UT staff and going around and listening to them. So all the credit for the ideas come from them. I did buy the shirts. But, ideas from Dr. Rhoda's and his team. So a lot of credit goes to the THEC team.
Thank you. Okay, so Mike just presented where we are with sales, both in terms of math, where we are so far, and then looking ahead to the English. Where are we? The online college prep course. Mike, you want to?
Yes, sir. So this idea kind of came out of the notion that if the Tennessee Promise, one of our goals is to attract a population of students that just aren't going to college right now. One of the things we found out, and we were aware, but it's a lot of our campuses have tremendous first-year courses. They have a course that when you enroll Austin P 1000, it's College 101. It's how to traverse higher education. These courses matter, and the data tells us that students that take those courses are much more successful than students that don't. But one of the things we realized is that the Tennessee Promise is going to have a population of students who delivering that course in the freshman year is too late. We actually need to reach them in high school with something that helps them gain fluency in higher ed, something that helps them understand the application process, and what better way to do that than via a massively open online course. And I really want to thank the RODP office at the Board of Regents for helping us with this, because one of the things, Coursera and edX are the flashy MOOC providers without question, but it's not something, Desire to Learn can deliver the same thing. And so we've been working with D2L to build a course with modules such as financial aid, how to apply, how to choose a college, traversing the application process, registering for classes, and to just help students gain some confidence in college, especially if they're a first-generation student. We want to deliver this course for free. We will deliver it for free. Of the 9 modules, 6 are finished. We have 3 more that we're going to be developing soon. We really would like to pilot this with our Gear Up seniors under Troy Grant's shop to get their initial reactions and possibly tweak the course. And then ultimately, this is a free resource that nobody owns and that we want to just be able to give to high schools, give to nonprofit groups like the College Access and Success Network and say, here you go. Students can work through it on their own. You can make it part of a structured course. It's really your call. But it's really, we hope this is a bridge for students that don't think about higher ed.
Well, also, I think the medium's the message, so getting used to getting instruction online will go a long way to when they are in those kind of courses.
The only other point I'd make is one of our options was to just take one of the college success courses like Austin P or ETSU's and just put it online, lock, stock, and barrel, and we chose not to do that. We chose to build this from the ground up and build it with developers from every institution. And so we really think that it's going to be a neat course, and we will deliver it for you for a demonstration, hopefully in July.
And Mike, students would find out about this through their high school, somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we think guidance counselors are the primary conduit, and, we put guidance counselors in a weird spot a lot because we give them so many different duties. We hope that by providing them this course, we increase their bandwidth a little bit.
Okay. Dual enrollment, the expansion of that, those conversations are underway. Thank you to the Board of Regents and UT. The governor's office is actively engaged in that. It's the notion of, I think the direction we're going is to have at least one fully paid for course, dual enrollment, and then figuring out, this is using the lottery funds, how best to do that, and working with TACUA has been a big part of this as well. So that's still, that's coming together, but that's about where we are. We talked about MOOCs. Anything else on that? I think we are. Jessica this morning talked about the programs and services for adult students. There's going to be a lot of activity there. As we indicated, a lot of that is thanks to the external support from Gates, from Limita, from Complete College America, and we will certainly keep you posted on that. Kind of a subset of adults are veterans. The governor appointed a task force last year. Randy is a member. I'm a member. UT has a rep, Board of Regents, THEC, all the usual suspects, but as well as some other entities as well. And we are to have, that task force is to have a set of recommendations back to the governor pretty soon, this summer, I guess. On the general question is, what kind of policies, what kind of provisions could be made that would really, Tennessee higher education would be a better provider of, well, higher education for veterans. We think we're a long way there. Legislation, Scott will mention this later, but in-state tuition for veterans, we're on our way. The meeting, that task force has met twice. Its third meeting is next week in Memphis. So we'll be bringing back to you the recommendations from that group as well. LEAP, that's Labor and Education Alignment Program. There is money in the governor's budget, some $10 million to be distributed for the purpose of better aligning specific programs with specific workforce needs at the local community level. There will be, mostly through the community colleges and TCATs, there will be an office within the office of the governor to administer that. But we'll be part of that, as will UT and the Board of Regents. I think that completes it. Was there anything else? Like I indicated, it's going to be a work in progress on a number of fronts, but it's all under that umbrella. Oh, no, one thing Joe mentioned this morning. So going back to the Tennessee Promise, there's a lot there that really builds on what was put in place with the Complete College Tennessee Act. So we're asking students to be full-time students, but at the same time the Board of Regents is coming forward with their cohort programming and their block scheduling, encouraging more students to start at the community colleges with all the transfer pathways identified. So it all makes sense. It's not just an isolated financial aid program. Mr. Chairman, that's my report on that.
Good, Dr. Rhoda, thank you. Since earlier we covered the amendment to the capital project list, is there anything else you want to add to that? Okay. And also we have the statutory reports. So next we will have Mr. Grant with the P16 initiatives update.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. I'm here to provide an update on progress in implementing the Gear Up grant. So just as a reminder, Gear Up is a federal program that was awarded to THEC in 2012. It stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. We work in 15 communities across the state. We follow a cohort of students starting in the 7th grade, providing college access and success services, following them all the way through their first year of post-secondary education. Additionally, in our 31 direct service high schools, we provide services to high school seniors each grant year. And so this is, you can see a map of where we are across the state. Each year, and part of the role of the Commission is to serve as our advisory board. So we report out to you on what's going on with the grant, but also as it pertains to our reporting back to the federal government. Each year, we are required to submit an annual performance report. This report, we evaluate the grant based on performance metrics that were put into the proposal itself. When it was awarded, we provide an update to you then after we report back to the feds. So the purpose of the APR is to monitor our progress, but then also to really show the impact that the program is having over time. The APR is also a tool to evaluate Gear Up as a program federally, where they pull this data from each of the sites, then to look at its impact across the country. So, in total, we served 18,000 students over the last reporting year. So, over the last calendar year, 18,000 students were served by the grant. Our cohort, this is the group that we're following all the way through, about 7,600 students served there, and then 11,000 seniors were served using Gear Up funds this last year. We provided professional development to over 1,000 educators and worked with 18,000 parents. I'll just have a brief moment to kind of give you a sense of what that looks like with parents. It's building awareness with them about what college is, the financial aid process, its workshops, but also a great example of how this then fits in with the Drive to 55. We have a program in Bradley County who is partnering with Country Music Television in Cleveland State to offer a scholarship to the parents of Gear Up students for them to go back to college. So as an intervention for our Gear Up kids, having their parents go back to college, the give back for the scholarship is to donate time and effort to implementing the Gear Up grant in Bradley County. So we are meeting our Gear Up goals through this, but we're also addressing the needs of the parents of our students. So those are the types of things, the collaborative partnerships we're hoping to foster using these Gear Up funds. Just to give you a breakdown on the ethnicity of our students and the gender breakdown, but I really want to get into the highlights of this APR year. So in total, and this will give you a sense of the type of data we have to collect. This isn't just kind of how many students receive services. Every service that is offered to a student is tracked on a student level. Those interventions are then mapped back to outcomes. So we have a database where every individual who works on the grant in the counties across the state will then have a list of the students that they serve and then provide a look into each intervention provided to that kid. So over 15,000 hours of support services were provided to students this year. Over 7,500 students went on college visits. Over 8,000 students received some type of in-depth career or college counseling throughout the grant year. We provided, like I said, over 1,000 educators, PD. 110 of those were focused on the use of SAS Curriculum Pathways, which is a curricular tool that's aligned with Common Core that we will build on in future grant years. We had 17 high schools participate in sales. Over 600 of those students completed, and we are proud of that. One of the things we're doing this year is to take, we have one of our Gear Up schools was the leader in the state in terms of completions. We want to replicate what's happening in that school at our other Gear Up schools. So we're going to bring together symposium of sales teachers to talk about best practices. What are the things that are working? What are the things that we could do better so that we build upon the successes of our other Gear Up schools? We hosted our annual youth summit at THEC University. We had 250 students and chaperones. We'll be doing that again this summer. We also administered the ACT Engage to all of our students and selected our third-party evaluator this year. So this will give you an idea, and I won't go through necessarily each point of the breadth of the services that we're offering. I mean, the sites are doing a lot of work to provide services to students, but it's not just the number of services that are being offered, it's really the depth of those services. So and let me be clear too, when you look at this, not every student needs the services that we're offering. We are really working hard to find the needs of students and marry the right intervention to the right student. But when we do that work, there's some depth to the work that's being done. So in the supportive services, over 10 hours of services were provided to each individual participant. When you look at the range of what happens in a school, is a significant amount of time that we're spending with each kid as we implement these services. This was our first full year of implementation in our direct service sites. So our data collection really does serve as our baseline. We now have TCAP scores for our 7th grade students as they went to the 8th grade. We will then be able to track over time the impact that the program has on those academic outcomes. Additionally, with the ACT Engage data, we have data about their social readiness for higher education. We will also track that over time to make sure that the program is not only effective, but we can really pinpoint the interventions that are particularly effective and then scale those. This is an example of the type of performance measures that we will be looking at over time, TCAP, ACT scores, and you'll see that there are room for improvement. Only 56% of our students were proficient in more than one TCAP area. That's something that we want to improve over time, and we will monitor that. Same with the ACT. We also, every other year, will do student surveys and parent surveys. As indicated by our surveys, 94% of our students are optimistic about their future. They believe that they are going to go to college. 84% of those students had talked to either a Gear Up staff member or a school personnel member about college requirements. This is something that we want to see continue to rise. 80% of parents also were aware of the Gear Up program. 89% of parents expect their students to go to higher education. And this is something that we saw in our market research as well, is that parents very much think that they want their students to go to higher education. The gap, however, between here and there is significant. How do I get there? What does that really mean to go to higher education? Those are the things that we hope to fill in through the Gear Up process. Over 43% of parents believe that cost of college is higher than it actually is based on state averages. This is not surprising. Many of our parents do believe that college costs more than it does. But alongside that, 62% of those parents don't have enough information to make educated decisions as it pertains to financial aid. This is, again, one of those baseline benchmarks that we will monitor and hope to move over time. So, in moving forward to year 3, here's a couple of things that we've learned and that we hope to implement going forward. Every Gear Up student this next year will have a one-on-one planning session with an advisor talking about career and post-secondary plans. This is something that will be implemented each grant year so that as we follow with our cohort kids, starting in the 9th grade, they will have an opportunity to meet with an adult, articulate a plan around college going, then also match their academic data, their readiness data, to interventions that we'll be offering in that school. So this will be the vehicle through which we will not only monitor students' progress towards enrolling and succeeding in higher education, but it's where we will then make sure that we're tying students to the correct interventions as we go through the process. We are also expanding our site's capacity to digest data and then turn that data into meaningful interventions. We are providing them data that they really already have available to them, TCAP data, ACT data, but within our database so that they then can tie, again, interventions to student outcomes. We are piloting this year, so some of you might be familiar with the College Application Week. That was a product of our last Gear Up grant. It started with our 9 counties, and we now have 300 sites across the state who participate in that annually. We are this year implementing and piloting with our Gear Up counties a bookend to that event called College Signing Day. This came out of a school in Texas. It's much like athletic signing days, where we have a large-scale event with the community where students will announce in front of their peers, in front of the community members and their families, younger siblings, where they're going to college. It's the kind of thing where they'll have a T-shirt and they'll unveil that T-shirt, and then there's going to be celebration about that. We want to celebrate this kind of success just like we celebrate other kinds of successes for our students. This is something our sites are very excited about. There was a call from the U.S. Department of Ed for more schools to do this, and I want Tennessee to be the first state that does it across the state. And so we will be implementing that this next year. Next, we are going to be embarking on a new statewide outreach campaign. This is a partnership with Walker & Associates out of Memphis, Tennessee. We have done market research to kind of understand the views from educators, students, their parents around higher education. We'll be launching a new campaign, College, You Can Get There From Here, here being Nashville, Tennessee, or Johnson County. But this will be wrapped around our resource, collegefortn.org. We also will be looking at student success stories at institutions where we will have student profiles that will be near peers that we will profile through across several different channels and media outlets, where we will have a successful student that then will be identifiable to the students that we're serving through Gear Up, which is a good proxy really for the rest of the students across the state. What we're finding is that our students don't have successful versions of themselves to look at, and we want to provide those examples for them. So we're excited about that. And then finally, the Tennessee Promise. We are committed to making sure that our 15 collaboratives are model communities for the Tennessee Promise. We'll be partnering with the partnering organizations who will be providing the mentoring work, providing technical assistance with our Gear Up site coordinators to make sure that information is being distributed efficiently and correctly, and making sure that this is a community effort around this new program. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you might have.
Questions from the body for Troy? That was an excellent report. Great job.
Thank you.
Our next update would be Corder College.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. and members of the commission. It's been a long day. And I will be brief. I know we all say we're going to be brief, but I really will be brief. So this is just an update on the annual report for Corder College, which is another one of our grant-funded movements, that initiatives that Russ was talking about, supplementing some of the funding around some of the work that we're doing through THEC. And I'm going to focus a lot on our celebrations, but just to frame the context of our work, just as a reminder, we're kind of housed by the THEC Academic Affairs, and we are working on two major components, which are core line curricula and curriculum councils. Now, Corder College is a multi-state effort. There's 11 states participating in this initiative. We're funded by the Rockefeller Philanthropy Associates, and every state is taking a little bit different approach. And I just met with them last week, actually, all the states in San Francisco with the TEST consortia, and we talked a lot about Common Core and sustainability. But one thing I just really want to point out to you guys is that Tennessee is always outstanding in these statewide these national meetings. Everyone's always making comments like, "My jaw just dropped," when they hear about some of the amazing reform efforts that we're making here in Tennessee, and that kind of lends a little bit to the work that we're doing, specifically around aligning our curriculum and working with our K-12 and higher ed partnerships, and that we're so far ahead that everyone's looking to us as leaders. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. So just briefly, I've talked to you guys before about the core-aligned curricula, and so what we have done is created some curriculum to align our credit-bearing entry-level courses in English and math to the Common Core state standards. We're not changing what's being done in those entry-level courses. We are just aligning the language and the expectations so that students are experiencing a more seamless transition when they're leaving their K-12 classrooms and coming into higher ed. This is going to be especially important when we're thinking about the Drive to 55 initiative in terms of providing additional supports to those students so that they're not having to learn entirely new paradigms in English and math. The faculty will be using language that the students can understand and relates to the work that they've already done. So in year one, we have developed complete model syllabi and curricular resources around college algebra as well as composition and rhetoric. We've also done small pilots of those materials in a variety of classroom settings and have had very positive feedback. It's been very exciting. So going into year two, we've actually already developed professional development modules, which will also be available on our websites for anyone to use past this point. And we've already set up summer workshops for folks, and you can see the dates up there as well, and they're quickly filling. So we're very excited to see what comes of that. We will have faculty statewide trained in this kind of approach to teaching these courses so that students are going to have that more seamless transition that we're going for. And then over this next year, we will continue to develop coursework for the next course in the sequence. So beyond English 1010, we've actually had a resounding request for English 1020. That's going to be a requirement. If folks start implementing English 1010, the students are going to need something with that higher rigor to go into in that next course. And then I'll try to be brief on this, but it's very difficult with the curriculum councils. This was an effort that was started to meet the needs of K-12 and higher education leaders that were looking for ways to collaborate in more effective ways, especially around a product or a project that they could really tangibly see and that would help their region. And so this is a grassroots approach. We're utilizing a partnership with the core offices, which are Department of Education regional offices, to host these meetings, specifically around increasing post-secondary attainment, but also building on those existing partnerships that are kind of around the state. And so each of the councils, I'm just going to highlight some of the achievements that they have been able to come up with in this past year. And I won't go over all of these, but they are all available on the websites. Each of them have their own website. I do want to highlight Southwest, which is probably one of my most gung-ho groups. They decided early on, the K-12 and higher ed leaders in that area, that they wanted to focus on literacy instruction alignment. And so they immediately looked at their College of Ed reading methods courses and did a crosswalk between what the 10 Core, which is the Department of Ed's training around Common Core, is doing to see if there was an alignment with what our colleges of ed are teaching our pre-service teachers and what's going on in the K-12 classrooms. And for the most part, very strong alignment with the exception of secondary literacy. And so what they're doing tomorrow actually is they've developed a subcommittee where they're going to work on a position paper for the state board to talk about state secondary literacy licensure requirements. And this is very powerful for several reasons. This is a body existing between K-12 directors and higher ed leaders and faculty and colleges of ed who have decided that this is an area that we need to come together with to try to make some changes because they see a need at this level that needs to go up rather than it being a state mandate that's moving down. They're really trying to make an effort to address the needs that they're seeing. Beyond that, they're also doing a literacy intervention report, which is going to be replicated in the Mid-Cumberland with math intervention, and that's going to be very exciting, something that they're hoping to start in their regions and then expand outwards. I also would like to highlight East Tennessee. I know there's an interest in the sales English content development. It was very serendipitous that we're working on the sales English development, and Roan and Walters were the two institutions that were chosen and also happen to be in that region. So Corda College is combining efforts with the sales movement to try to get that content developed. And so that's going to be focused on aligning those learning support courses for both reading and writing in an integrated approach so that we're not offering two separate learning support courses. They're going to be integrated together, which is much more aligned to Common Core, and it's going to be more appropriate for that K-12 classroom. And I'm just going to go ahead and open it up to questions if you guys have about the core line curricula or any of the work that each of these councils are doing in your particular region.
Questions from any members of the commission? Excellent information. Thank you. Next, we will have our legislative update.
Good afternoon. As promised, I told you in January when at our meeting that the legislative leadership promised a speedy and efficient session, and they delivered on that promise. The legislature adjourned sine die about a week ago, last Thursday afternoon. A number of interesting and exciting pieces of legislation passed, and I'd like to give you just a brief overview of what we saw this year. This is Senate Bill 1834 I briefed you on in January, and that is the result of THEC and the systems taking a close look at our state employee fee waiver program to determine if there were any efficiencies that could be attained. One of the results of that investigation was that data indicated we were beginning to see employees utilizing one course per term benefit for multiple hour classes. In some cases, in fact, I'd gotten an email right before this was up in Senate Finance about 2 weeks ago from an employee wanting to use it for a 24-hour course at UTK, actually. And at $330 a credit hour, that's a significant amount of money. This bill will actually define one course per term, which was not defined in 1990 when this passed originally, as consisting of no more than 4 credit hours or 120 clock hours at a TCAT. So that we were excited to see that change. It's a responsible move for the program overall. House Bill 2246, and just as note, I did include this year the floor votes up in the upper right-hand corner in red text, just for your information. House Bill 2246 is in response to the comptroller's audit for both THEC and the systems. And we mentioned this a little bit in January as well. The Complete College Act, when that was passed, used a lot of every and all language. And what we learned a couple of years into this exercise was that there are programmatic and geographic considerations that don't always work. So we revisited the statute to make those revisions, just addressing the practicalities that needed to be addressed. There's also going over for next year dual admission agreements, and we'll be working with the systems to identify institutions where the dual admissions is appropriate. Senate Bill 2352, as some of you will recall, last year a small independent, nonprofit college in North Georgia filed suit against THEC, alleging disparate treatment under the Dormant Commerce Clause. As a result of that, we took it as an opportunity to revisit Post-Secondary Authorization Act and create parity between those kinds of colleges that are operating in Tennessee and those that are domiciled outside our state. Going forward, just to ensure consumer protection stays intact, institutions wanting to utilize this exemption will be required to fill out an information request form so that we've got some information about the out-of-state entities that are reaching in, recruiting, enrolling, and so on. Should a complaint ever arise, our DPSA staff will have what they need to assist the student. Senate Bill 1632 already assigned a public chapter number of 712 as the Accessibility Task Force. This amended a bill that was originally brought by the Tennessee Federation for the Blind. We convened a meeting with their representatives earlier this year, and will actually be having a dialogue and having a very healthy conversation about some of the accessibility to digital content for the students that need that between the stakeholder groups and the systems in THEC. We are required by the statute or the bill to provide recommendations to the legislature no later than December the 15th of this year. Senate Bill 2115, and you can tell by the vote in the upper right-hand corner, was a fairly politically contentious bill, a little bit complicated at first glance. Prior to the enactment of this legislation, a U.S.-born student who is the child of an illegal immigrant, undocumented immigrant, was unable to attain an in-state tuition rate despite living here. There were two bills filed. This is the one that passed. And the key is unemancipated. So in a nutshell, what this means is a student could have been a resident of Tennessee, born here, a U.S. citizen by classification, but because their parents were undocumented and perhaps in the country illegally, if they're unemancipated, they're under the care and custody of their parent. Well, since the parent cannot hold legal domicile, the student could not either. And that resulted in these students not being able to take advantage of in-state tuition. So that will remedy this. There was a companion bill also sponsored by Senator Gardenhire in the Senate and Representative Richard Floyd in the House, that would have extended that in-state tuition opportunity to the undocumented children themselves. That bill was actually taken off notice at the committee stage. House Bill 1606, Public Chapter 665, is the SREB Compact Sunset Extension. It was amended at the committee level for 6 years. This enables THEC to continue to take part in all of the SREB programs, Academic Common Market, among others. House Bill 1591, Public Chapter 726, is the slide with the least amount of bullet points on it, but is perhaps the most important to us here at the agency, and that is extending our sunset for 4 years to 2018. The systems in TSAC also received a 4-year extension. Senate Bill 975, Public Chapter 538, we did mention to you in January. Senator McNally and Chairman Harry Brooks brought this bill. The systems will be familiar with it, and they're just simply asking for state legislative requests to be sort of a respective protocol, you could say, that those would go through the appropriate channels in the systems before being brought to the legislature for consideration. Senate Bill 1358 has to do with cosmetology and barber school authorization, sort of a recent issue for our folks in DPSA this year. Due to some changes at the federal level with rules, state authorization for many of the institutions that we don't regulate, that are actually regulated by their respective boards, has been 2 boards. They just merged cosmetology and barber boards this year, so it'll actually be 1 board going forward. Commerce had, because it's a little outside their wheelhouse, some concerns about state authorization. So the sponsors determined that the best outcome would be to grant the Department of Commerce the ability in statute to authorize these institutions under their purview properly, but in the event there's a problem, that there is a fallback provision that they can come to THEC and seek authorization only under those circumstances. So we'll know more about how that works out, kind of shakes out as the months progress. One of the biggest, if not the biggest bill, Senate Bill 2471, you've heard quite a bit about today. That's the Tennessee Promise. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, both in work session and prior presentations, but a game changer for many students, and we'll be excited to see what this means in the coming years. House Bill 1549 is resulted in being the park assessment delay legislation. This was the result of a conference committee report in the last couple days of session. Essentially delays implementation of park testing for 1 year. And for the 15-16 academic year, the Department of Education will be putting that out for bid through an RFP process. There were also some other sections in the bill having to do with data utilization and some concerns that the legislature had on those fronts. Senate Bill 1905, you heard a little bit about last year, and I mentioned briefly in January. This was sort of a cleanup bill for the funding for this program. UT, Lipscomb, Vanderbilt, I think University of Memphis have this. This is for students with intellectual disabilities to have an on-campus experience through that program. One of the things, the cohort that they initially sought to provide this aid to was left out of the original bill that was passed last year. So this was actually funded in the budget amendment and made those students whole who would have been in their second year. There's one more bill that our Associate Counsel Emily Petro shepherded through this year, and I'd like her to present that to you briefly.
All right. Thank you, Scott, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. As was just mentioned, I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes and highlight one of the major higher ed-related laws that passed during legislative session this year, namely the Veterans Education Transition Support, or VETS Act. Now, this legislation is something that THEC was happy to lend our expertise on in the form of research and data to the sponsors, Senate Majority Leader Mark Norris and House Speaker Pro Tem Curtis Johnson. Additionally, since THEC does serve as the state approving agency for veterans education programs in Tennessee, we were able to incorporate critical input from the folks in our Veterans Education Division during the development and drafting process for the bill. In particular, Tom Morrison and Debbie Gardner were both instrumental in making sure that the VETS Act did exactly what we needed it to do. Now, to provide some context, Tennessee has a large and growing population of veterans, which is increasing at an exponential rate due in part to the large-scale return of troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, the GI Bill is the primary mechanism that provides education benefits for those who've served on active duty. Well, one caveat with those GI Bill benefits is that their maximum payout is tied to in-state tuition rates. It's an issue because in Tennessee, those veterans that move here to attend college after the military service are classified as out-of-state students upon enrollment. It can be difficult for them to establish domicile and obtain the in-state rates because the presumption is that they're here only for educational reasons. Being a full-time student isn't enough to get you across that threshold where you would be granted the in-state tuition rate. So therein lies the challenge. You've got a veteran who's considered an out-of-state student, and yet that veteran's GI Bill benefits max out at the highest in-state tuition rate. So there's a danger of a benefit gap, which the veteran is left to pay for out of his or her own pocket. Now, at the time the VETS Act was developed, complicating the issue of the benefits gap was the fact that several other states already offered some form of a waiver or in-state tuition program for veterans. Now, this meant that those who might otherwise come to Tennessee for college instead would look to some of these other states where the GI Bill would cover their full tuition and fees. On this map, you'll see Tennessee is highlighted in green. That's something that's actually changed from even this past fall. There were originally 20 states a few months ago that had this type of legislation in effect. We're up to 24 now just in a few short months. So there are a lot of states that are recognizing this issue and addressing it at the state level. And it's not just the states who've noticed the issue that veterans are facing as they return from duty and begin to pursue higher education. House Resolution 357 is a similar federal government measure that's making its way through Congress right now. Under the provisions of that legislation, which takes a nationwide approach to the issue, institutions that do charge out-of-state tuition to veterans would lose all eligibility to accept GI Bill benefits. HR 357 is sponsored by Representative Jeff Miller from Florida, and there are 50 additional co-sponsors, including Congressman Phil Rowe of the 1st District in Tennessee. It hasn't made its way all the way through Congress yet. It passed the House of Representatives and is currently awaiting consideration in a Senate committee. But nonetheless, the fact that a federal measure even exists serves as further confirmation that the benefits gap for the GI Bill is a real issue. And in the event that it does become federal law, Tennessee institutions will already be compliant due to the provision of the Tennessee VETS Act. So that's kind of the context for the Act. Let's go back to what it actually does. Now, there are two parts or prongs to the Tennessee VETS Act. Part one ensures that veterans who relocate here to Tennessee within 24 months of their discharge could be classified as in-state students for tuition purposes. Part two of the bill might be explained as a way of recognizing campuses that have gone above and beyond to create a supportive environment for veteran students. Basically, schools that satisfy a list of veteran-friendly criteria are eligible to be designated as a VETS campus. It's something that THEC would verify through site visits at prospective campuses, and we put up a list on our website of those schools who have received the designation, along with enrollment and contact information that might be useful to veteran service members who are planning to attend school here in Tennessee. So overall, veterans are widely considered to represent an attractive student base with the discipline and skills that make them valued workforce members, not only upon their return from service, but also upon their graduation from higher education institutions. There's been considerable interest expressed in making Tennessee a destination for veteran students. And I think the goal here, at least in terms of THEC's involvement, was to lend some insight on the current environment and the mechanics of how that might be accomplished. So with that in mind, we were glad to see the VETS Act, as mentioned in the top right corner, received unanimous approval in both houses of the state legislature, and all provisions of the bill will be in full effect beginning in the fall semester of this year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just like to insert, we've had a couple of comments that we wanted to be better for veterans education, and we just heard that we have a considerable interest in being doing well in veterans education. Our mission for the task force is to be the best state for veterans education. So I just want to put that out there. And I've got to sneak out.
Okay, well, just a couple of things. I want to commend Scott and Emily. This was an intense session, and they were dogged in their staying focused and keeping us focused on what was important, which is a task. So very much appreciate that. On the park issue, so I think our position is on this. We did put a lot of work and interest into being a park state. That's on hold now, but we want to thank Joe, you and Katie, and John, you and Tristan for buying into the whole notion of that kind of assessment. We will continue to advocate for that kind of assessment, and we will keep you posted on how that goes, but we will not be implementing park this fall as originally planned.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and the implication of that is that we will not have an assessment that's aligned with the Common Core standards, so the standards that are being taught won't be realistically assessed for at least a year or two. An RFP process will undoubtedly take longer than a year to actually have a test in place. Implication for us is we'll continue to do what we've always done, and that's do not a very great job at being able to place students when they come to us. And ultimately, if we can get to park, we'll be in a place where we think we have much better placement information for students who come to our schools.
Amen. Thank you. Scott, Emily, thank you. Excellent. Next items are yours.
Okay, so, we've already done them. Please, commission members, your conflict of interest statements, either give them to Lavella, give them to me, or mail them in as soon as possible. The next commission meeting, July 24th, here, same format, and this we know differently? Yeah.
So I stubbed my toe earlier. I need to have the indulgence of the commission. I'd like to introduce two women who actually put together these MOOCs, and they need to stand up and be recognized. Renee Smith is the coordinator of Digital Media Services. Please stand up, Renee. By the way, she also has a Twitter site. It coins the terminology, take a first-hand view of MOOC's success. And then Jennifer Gramling, who's Director of Online Programs, she joined Knoxville last May. And they've traveled all the way here with me, and I felt like traveling home with them without introducing them properly.
Yes, good point.
I apologize and set the record straight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a reason why you're the president.
Well, thank you for being here. We
Thank
would have
you.
said that
We
anyway.
appreciate
You're gonna do that. Adam Jarvis is moving on. He has completed his second year as a student member of the commission. And I just want to say, Adam, it's been a pleasure working with you. And he's been here in Nashville this semester working with the Department of Health. And it's just been great to see him over in the Legislative Plaza and having him here. But again, thank you, and words.
Thank you so much. It's exciting. I was just telling Robert at lunch that I can't believe it's already been 2 years. Time flies when you're having fun. But this has been an awesome experience. I feel very passionate about higher education in our state. I know that there's a lot of exciting things that have happened over my 2 years, and I look forward to hearing more as I move on. And Robert, I wish you well as you move into your second year. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve with such an amazing commission and the wonderful staff that THEC has and all that they do for our state. It truly has been an amazing experience, and I thank you so much.
Thank you.
It has been an honor and a privilege to have you with us. We appreciate it, and we wish you well. At 3:30, we will have the Carol Lund Community Service Award. Members of the commission, you stand adjourned.